What is the Patriots defense, Tom Brady, the NFL trade deadline, and the former championship dynasty Warriors all have in common? We're going to have to see. Okay, before we get to my three things, we got a few other sporting news that we have to get to. So the Houston Astros and the Washington Nationals will play Game 6 today in Houston after Houston took all three games in Washington. And that game is at 7 o'clock. We're going to see if Houston can close it out in their home stadium. DeAndre Ayton has been suspended 25 games for the anti-drug policy in the NBA. This is going to be a huge impact to the growing star and the Phoenix Suns, who are not necessarily playoff contenders, but at least they're trying to grow and gel together. So this could be a huge hit to that whole growth. Of course, DeAndre Ayton is trying to appeal this, and we'll see where that takes him. But as it stands right now, there is a 25-game suspension. Lastly, I'd just like to touch on the whole MJ Today interview that happened last week. In his, sly comment at Steph Curry. I recently said some things on Twitter. You can check that out specifically. But I'd just like to kind of give a little background, I guess, to that opinion. So I'd like to start off by saying that I don't believe MJ was legitimately serious in this comment. I think that, even if he was, it's hard for me to even fathom that MJ would really believe that one of the greatest shooters and champion is not going to be in the Hall of Fame if he were to retire today. However, in MJ's mind, I believe that he meant this quite literally, that he is literally not in the Hall of Fame. Now, this may sound dumb to a lot of people where they say, obviously, Alex, he's still playing in the league. Well, to MJ, there's probably a good amount of players that he believes are Hall of Famers that are not Hall of Famers. Now, that could be right or wrong. I'm not going to put anything in, obviously, Michael Jordan's mouth. And this is all just questions, subjective opinion, because he's not going to ever come out and, explain his reasoning. He doesn't need to. So, in my opinion, I don't think he was seriously saying Steph Curry is not a Hall of Famer. And if he were seriously saying it, I think he meant literally not a Hall of Famer currently. But that's all I have for that. Now to my three things. This week we're going to talk a lot about the Patriots and the NFL, and then we're going to top it off at the very end with some Warriors talk and whether or not we need to panic. But let's start with the Patriots. They're playing amazing, to say the least. Their defense is historic. I'm going to run over some numbers with you right now. In total defense, yards per game, they're number 2 in the league. In passing defense, yards per game, they're number 2 in the league. In rushing defense, they're number 4. In basically every other category, including fantasy numbers, their defense is number 1. Interceptions, they have 19 on the season. Number 2 is 10. It's Carolina with 10 interceptions. They are 9 interceptions ahead of number 2. They're number 1 in sacks with 31. They're number 1 in points per game average, which is 7.6. The opponents average 7.6 points against them. And then in fantasy, they average 21.6 points. That's more than most running backs and wide receivers. A defense. And then, obviously, of course, it wouldn't be number 1 in every statistic if it wasn't also touchdowns. They have 6 touchdowns, defensive touchdowns on the season. But that's not what we're talking about. Yes, that plays a factor into what I'm trying to make a point about. But really what I'm trying to talk about is that they're 8-0 right now. They really could go 16-0. Their remaining schedule is the Ravens, the Eagles, Cowboys, Texans, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills, and Dolphins. Now, there is some competition on this. The Ravens have been playing well. Lamar Jackson is out of this world. He's come really out of his shell of being a running back. The Eagles are struggling, but still a formidable team. Cowboys are still the Cowboys. They're a strong team, and they traded for Michael Bennett. We'll talk about that with the trade deadline. But they traded for Michael Bennett, so they kind of bolstered that defense. The Texans, they just lost J.J. Watt, so it's a less formidable team, but the offense still looks good. Deshaun Watson looks great. And the Chiefs, if Patrick Mahomes will be back for that game. That is 5 weeks from now, so he should be back fully healthy and ready to play. I think the Chiefs will present a challenge. But the Bengals, Bills, and Dolphins, the Bengals just benched Andy Dalton. Really, the Patriots could look at 16-0, and Bill Belichick, I'm sure, is aware of that, and I'm sure he's prepping his team for that possibility. I picked them for the Super Bowl. I really think that, with Tom Brady and with that defense, the historic defense, the numbers I went over, I think if they continue to play and injuries don't prevent them from anything, I think really there's nobody else to pick. The Patriots will win the Super Bowl. They'll definitely make the Super Bowl. Now, another thing I want to talk about the Patriots is last week there was some discussion about Tom Brady selling or putting his house up for sale, along with his trainer putting his house up for sale, and there being a possibility of him moving somewhere else or playing somewhere else. His quote actually on Get Up, ESPN's Get Up, as I have it right here in front of me, is, "I would just say there are three options. He either stays in New England, he's retiring, or he's going to play somewhere else. I would think of those three that staying in New England, to me, would seem like the least likely option of the three, but we'll see." This is pretty slick by Adam Schefter. It's hard for me to imagine that of those three options, he'd really go play for someone else. Why go play for another team for any other reason than just to win Super Bowls? You're in the perfect place to win Super Bowls. You have the best coach in the league, arguably the best coach ever. You have the whole organization built around you. And so at 42 years old, you want to move to another team to prove what? That you're not, that you're the greatest player, that we all know he's the greatest quarterback of all time. He arguably is the greatest player of all time. Defensive heads will say Lawrence Taylor, there's other names thrown in the conversation. But in my personal opinion, Tom Brady is the greatest person to ever touch a football. So what's the purpose of moving to a different team and playing for a different organization? If you want to, at 42 or 43 years old, moving to, let's say, the Titans is one of the ones that's thrown in there. What is the purpose of moving to you're not going to take the Titans to the Super Bowl. You're not going to, let alone win the Super Bowl. You're not going to do that in the span of, he wants to play to 45 years old. He's not going to do that in 3 years. That's not humanly possible. The organization isn't built around you. Currently, they're in shambles. They're rotating between Marcus Mariota and Ryan Tannehill for quarterback. So it's not like they're one quarterback away from, making the Super Bowl or winning the Super Bowl. So what's the purpose behind that? There is none. So I think of those three options, I think he either continues to play in New England. If they win the Super Bowl, he'll retire. I think 7 Super Bowl rings, that's a nice ending for him. But the least likely option for me is moving to another team. So again, there's more than 3 options, I believe. So I spoke about some of the trades that are going on. The NFL trade deadline ended today, 4 p.m. Eastern, and there's a few I'd like to run over. I highlighted some notable ones, some ones I've spoken about previously, or some ones that happened last week, or even 2 weeks ago. But there's some notable trades that I'd like to run over. Starting with October 16th, we had Marcus Peters shipped off to the Rams and quickly replaced by Jalen Ramsey from the Jaguars. Fast forward to October 22nd, we just got done talking about the Patriots. The Patriots acquired Mohamed Sanu from the Falcons. That's big time. Bolstering their wide receiver core, really just trying to make that push that, not like they needed much more, but they make that push to really certify them as the Super Bowl favorites. That same day, Emmanuel Sanders gets shipped off to the 49ers, a team that really could cause some issues in the NFC. And really, with Emmanuel Sanders bolstering their wide receiver core just like the Patriots, I think this is a great move for them. They're realizing that they're undefeated right now. They're pushing on all cylinders. Like I said earlier, total defense, passing defense, and rushing defense for the Patriots. Total defense and passing defense are number 2 behind San Francisco. So I think this is a great opportunity for San Francisco to really make a move and try and put themselves in the conversation for Super Bowl favorites. October 24th, I mentioned earlier, Michael Bennett gets moved from the Patriots onto the Cowboys, really bolstering that defense, and I think really kind of putting them in a position in the NFC that could rival a lot of the other contenders like the Saints or the 49ers or whoever else you want to throw in that conversation. But I think that's a great move for them. October 28th, Kenyon Drake gets shipped off to the Cardinals, and Leonard Williams, in the first trade ever between the Jets and the Giants, Leonard Williams moves from the Jets to the Giants. Not like either of those teams are really making any moves this season, postseason-wise. I think they're both, obviously in rebuilding. Today, Aqib Talib gets shipped off to Miami. How about that? Just really, why are you sending the man to Miami? The team is so bad. That's horrible. The man might as well retire. Why the Rams got to do him like that? That's all I have for the NFL trade deadline. We're going to move on to the Warriors and their questionable 1-2 start. Oh, first week, we're going to start worrying about the Warriors. But it seriously is an issue. Kevin Durant moving on has kind of really left a hole in their offense that D'Angelo Russell is, he can step in and fill, but definitely not fill to the maximum, to the 100% that Kevin Durant left. Arguably 65, 70, maybe 80% on a good week or good day. But D'Angelo Russell is not 6'10" and can pull up from 30, So the Warriors are struggling and they're trying to adapt. They have a young team. They don't really have the dynasty that they've kind of built over these years. They still have Steph, they still have Draymond, but really the rest of the team is kind of young, new, inexperienced, and Clay obviously injured. So we kind of sit here and watch, and it's amazing to watch the Warriors get blown out by the OKC Thunder without Russell Westbrook. Now it's Chris Paul, and they get blown out. What are we to think of this? Well, my opinion is you don't panic. Don't panic this early. Now, can Steph Curry do what James Harden does in Houston? No. He can't take the whole team on his shoulders, but that's why D'Angelo Russell's there. That's why Draymond Green is there. Draymond Green may not be the offensive weapon that other people are, specifically on the Warriors, but as has been said multiple times over multiple years, Draymond Green is the glue that holds this team together. And in the press conference where he's saying they suck and they need to improve, I agree, they do suck, but it's not time to panic. It's time to realize this team doesn't have Kevin Durant anymore. This team has been going until June every year. Their dynasty is finally come to an end. Now, does that mean they're not a playoff team or they're going to be, sub 500? No. Steph Curry can still do Steph Curry things and still one of the greatest shooters that we've ever seen. And D'Angelo Russell had a coming out party last year with the Nets. And this year, he's now on the offensive juggernaut, or was offensive juggernaut of the Golden State Warriors. So it's not time to panic. But it is time to realize that this team is not what they used to be. And we have to start looking specifically in the West at the Denver Nuggets, at the Houston Rockets, at the Clippers, at the Lakers, at these kinds of teams. Now, they beat the Pelicans. Zion was not on the court. Now, I don't believe Zion would have made that much of a difference. I think with 0-2, I think the Warriors and their championship mentality and Steve Kerr, I think they still would have won that game. I think that they came out with so much fire, and Steph Curry was so pissed off that he just wanted to win, and Draymond especially wanted to win, that it finally started clicking, at least somewhat. Steph Curry only ended up with 26 points. I say only 26 points, where I'm expecting 30 at least from him. But again, he's not James Harden. He doesn't take the team on his back. Now, he's not a organizational player, but he isn't a Kevin Durant, James Harden, LeBron James, Giannis. He's not one of those guys. He's not one of those guys that can, when the team needs you to put up 50, he's not one of those guys. Can he do it? Yes, absolutely. One of the greatest three-point shooters, greatest shooters of all time. But he's not going to go out there like James did last year and put up 30 points for 20-plus games in a row. But it's not time to panic. It's time to realize that there are other teams to watch in the NBA. Those are my 3 things from this week, and really last week because I didn't get to it. But if you have any other questions, I'm sure there's plenty that we have to discuss. Until next time, thanks for watching.